Why do I keep doing that? Sorry, guys. Welcome to SheKnowsArsenal. My name is Jessica. I'm your host. You can follow me on Twitter at JessinoTweets and at SheKnowsArsenal. Welcome to another transfer talk, going over the most recent Arsenal news and transfer news during this January transfer window. Make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel. I don't know why I look like a ghost. It's concerning. Hold on. We need to fix this. I look like Wednesday. How do we not look like Wednesday, guys? How do we not look like Wednesday? How do we fix this problem? I don't think we're going to be able to fix it. Oh, well. Who cares? Anyways, so on today's transfer talk, we're going to be going through, obviously, most recent Arsenal news, transfer news. Some things have broken over the last, 20 minutes or so. So we'll start with that first and then work our way backwards. CHIESA is now the transfer priority. We'll talk about that, as well as Fresneda hopefully making his choice someday. We've been waiting, buddy. Make your choice. And who else? And Zubimendi, who seems like is somebody that is wanting the Arsenal move in the summer. So very interesting, things there. So, we'll talk about all of those. So what I really want to know in the chat, if you guys are new, what you guys think about these things. Get your thoughts and feelings out in the chat. This is not an echo chamber. Obviously, I'll give you guys the information that I've seen, but what I really like is a little bit of discussion. So starting out, we're still talking about midfield, and now it's more clear why we're talking about midfield. It's because Mohamed Elneny has suffered a long-term injury, and this is just broken over the last couple of minutes. And so it's just making it so much more clear why Arsenal are kind of pushing to bring in a midfielder. Kaya asked Arteta if Elneny's injury was a concern, if there was any truth in the whispers that he could be out for the season. His response was, there are concerns, especially because Mo is a player who never complains about anything, but let's see. So that is a concern. This would be Elneny's second long-term injury in this season. He got injured early on, and I think against Fulham, and he didn't come back until maybe a month or so later. And so maybe this is a re-aggravation of the same thing, but apparently he got injured in training. There are fears at Arsenal that Mohamed Elneny has sustained a long-term injury that could keep him out for the rest of the season. That's coming from Simon Jones. So that's not great. That's not good news, because whatever you think of Elneny, whether you think he's good enough for Arsenal or not, he was our best option off of the bench just in case, something were to happen to Thomas Partey. Now he's not available, and we all kind of know that Sambi Lokonga is not somebody that is right for the sixth position. Arsenal have also rejected an approach from AC Monaco to sign Albert Sambi Lokonga on loan, with Mikel Arteta unwilling to part with another midfielder after losing Mohamed Elneny. So not only, we lost Elneny, but Sambi is also now missing out on a really good opportunity, I think, for himself. Monaco would be a really good place for Sambi to go, spread his wings a little bit, get some consistent game time, but he has to stay because Arsenal don't have enough midfield depth without Elneny. And so we're in a very similar situation to what we were at the beginning of the season, where Elneny got injured and there's a couple days left in the transfer window, and now we're looking for somebody, and it's a little bit of a scramble. Now, last time we went after Douglas Luiz, who Aston Villa were absolutely dogged about not selling. And so we went for it. But yeah, you guys, this is okay. I'm going to say this one time. I am not ill. Okay. I'm sitting in front of a light that is making me look like a ghost, and the coloring is off, and I do not have the time, because there's 200 of you guys in here, to frick around with the colors. So leave me alone. Leave me alone. Now you guys are making me conscious. Hold on. I'm feeling some type of way. Did that help? I think that helped a little bit. Whatever. So, but yeah. So, we're in the same exact situation that we were in at the beginning of the season, Now, there's about a week left in the transfer. Why am I, guys? I was clicking this like it was my phone. I was going like this, trying to see what the date was. It's been one of those types of days. We have about a week left until the transfer window closes, and Arsenal are looking for a midfielder. And so it's weird because we had the conversation around midfielders yesterday, and I did feel like we mostly spoke about long-term options, people that could come in the summer, but we may see Arsenal move something forward in order to make sure that we're not, because if Elneny's out for the season, we have to bring somebody in. And so that leaves the sixth position open. Now, there's a couple of names that have come to the forefront. One of them being Amadou Onana of Everton. So Onana, this is coming from Jacob Steinberg. He's saying that Arsenal are interested in Amadou Onana from Everton and could look at Weston McKennie as another option. Now, starting with Onana, the Belgian international, I think we looked at him yesterday, 21 years old, about 6'3", more of a destroyer type than anything else. And he's become available because of the circus that is Everton Football Club at the moment. They've sacked Frank Lampard. They've parted with what is that kid's name? You guys know. You guys will tell me in the Anthony Gordon. They sold him for less than what they would have gotten from Chelsea in the summer had they sold him then, only for Spurs to come in and hijack their replacement for Anthony Gordon, who is Arnaut Danjuma. So they're going through a lot, and Onana is not showed back up for training. There's also the owners are looking to sell, and it looks like they're going through somewhat of a crumble, and that has left kind of like the door open for Onana. Now there's different reports coming out, but they're saying like 50 million pounds is what Everton would want for Amadou Onana. I would say I'd rather just risk it, because no, like 50 million for this player is just not good enough. It's just, he's just nowhere near worth 50 million. I mean, let's just be real. He's a good player, but he wouldn't be worth anywhere near that, you know? He's nowhere near as good as Caicedo, and Caicedo is probably worth about 40, you know? So, I don't think Arsenal would go for that, but maybe we're looking at him as like a loan to buy situation or something like that. But this man has went like AWOL, you know, and he has not come back to training. So I wonder if he's trying to force a move, because one of the last times that I saw him play, which I thought was funny, was he scored a goal and then he did the I'm him. Clearly this guy thinks he's the shit, right? So he thinks I'm one of the key players on this side. I'm too good to be at Everton while they're in the crumble. But I don't know if you're 50 million pounds good. You know, I don't know. So okay, so he's back in training. Good. So but yeah, I think that he's a good player, but I would be really surprised if Arsenal came up with 50 million. And spend it on this player, even though I do think he's an interesting player. This is a cool, I think a good comparison here that I'm just seeing on Twitter. It's random. Somebody said that he feels like Ndidi 2.0. Very good defensively, but doesn't offer much going forward. And I do think that that's probably a really good comp. People loved Ndidi, and I remember when people were trying to say Ndidi was better than Thomas Partey, but no, like, besides the destroying part of their game, there's not much more beyond that. And so I don't think Onana is somebody that I would expect to come to Arsenal, but I know that Arsenal would probably be looking at him because he's available, or seemingly available, and we are in a desperate situation. If the window closes and we don't have another CDM, I don't know, y'all. I don't know, y'all. I don't know. Jaffa says Savage would be amazing. Bailey says waiting on that silent transfer to go boom. I would love that, because you guys know I'm not doing sagas anymore. I'm doing secret transfers from here on out. Secret transfers, no sagas. Okay. Let's see. Lucas says it's not a good comp. Onana is like Fellaini and Didi is a traditional DM. Fair enough. But I think the overall point kind of stands that he doesn't really offer the passing ability, the intricacy, the technical ability that somebody like a Thomas Partey would give you or something like that. He's more of a, I would say, a chaos merchant than anything else. But I get what you're saying. It's not a great comp because maybe he's more box to box and not a traditional DM. But the point stands. He just doesn't have the technical ability, I think. Matt G says, I think Onana would be good for like Newcastle, like in the way that they play. Not us. Matt G says, remember, Jess, it's very unlikely we will find a like for like Partey comparison in January. I agree with that. Rep says, should have bought Douglas Luiz last summer after all. You can't buy somebody that's not for sale. And so we're not going to overpay for him as well because he's not worth that. And we know what Arsenal want to do. Arsenal want to bring in Declan Rice. And Declan Rice is going to cost 80 million. And I think we have to be really, really careful about bringing somebody in that's going to spoil our ability to get that done. And so, although I do understand the push and the desperation to bring in a number 6, a 50 million for Onana feels like it could hinder summer business. So I think we're looking more in like the 25 million pound range or something like that. But it's so annoying that El Neni, of all people, is getting injured all of a sudden. I mean, I thought we could get through, but with him being injured, we're lucky that the transfer window is open, but like, damn, you weren't getting injured before. Crispy Rice says it's hard in January. Nobody wants to sell their midfielders in Jan. Then you overpay. Amira says, feel bad for El Neni, to be honest. Rarely gets injured and now possibly have a long-term injury again. We were willing to overpay for Luis, so hopefully we'll get someone this week. Kiwior DM if we're desperate. Yeah, I still feel like if for some reason Thomas Partey were to get injured, the first man up is Sambi Lokanga. I don't think that, even though Arteta does speak about his defenders having the ability to play as DMs, I've never really seen him use it. He's always used Sambi. And so I still think that would be the number one option. But I do agree. I feel bad for El Neni because he doesn't get injured very often. And now all of a sudden he's getting these long-term injuries. And it's just unfortunate. If he was not injured, I wouldn't feel any type of way about getting a DM now. But it's kind of like it's forced our hand a little bit, and we're lucky the window is open, but it also has not left us with much time. There's 300 of you guys in here. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. Billy says, what do you think about McKennie? In my opinion, McKennie is more of a box-to-box, but he can play 6, but I'm not sure. I guess if he's the only one available, then maybe we should try for him. So that's kind of like the next option. The next player that was mentioned in that article was Weston McKennie. U.S. international, plays for Juventus, I think, came from Schalke, went on a loan to Juventus, and then they ended up buying him for about 20 million. And he struggled a little bit for playing time, and I don't think he's an Allegri player. I think McKennie came in under Pirlo and has struggled to like make his imprint on this team. And so it's been reported quite a bit that McKennie would be on the move soon. And it looks like Leeds are leading this, and that makes a lot of sense. Jesse Marsh, the already like American influence there, so it makes sense. And he starts for them, I think. I think you get a midfield of forgot his name, y'all. I always forget their names. Whatever. I don't care. He starts for them. And so I feel like that's a better option. And we're kind of in and around there trying to figure out if it's the right move for us. But if I'm honest with you guys, Weston McKennie is a box-to-box midfielder. He's not a number 6. He's not somebody that's going to give us depth in the position that we actually need him to be there for. It's an idea that he can play 6. It's not something that's usually put into practice. And I don't think technically he's somebody that would flourish with Arsenal. Those are my feelings on it. Good player, like him for the U.S. men's national team. Not necessarily bought into him being the one for Arsenal, but that's the issue in January when you're looking for options. The cheaper options tend not to be exactly what you want, and then the more expensive options, they're even more expensive because people don't want to part with those types of players. So you're not going to get a Caicedo or a Declan Rice or something like that in January unless you grossly overpay. And then the guys that are like 25 million or something like that tend not to be exactly what you want. And Weston McKennie falls into that not really what you want. Would be an additional body, but is not necessarily somebody that if Thomas Partey were to go down, I'm like, okay, put him in the 6. That's just not really it. You know what I mean? So I do worry about that, but at the same time, I think Leeds are so far ahead in this, and it's just a natural fit. For them that I don't anticipate him coming to Arsenal. But that's the thing. It's Arsenal are going to look, but there just may not be a good fit. And so, yeah, we'll see. Sports Capital says, well, 1-6 right now, but for a loan, then in the summer we can get Declan and Zubimendi and play Declan as an 8. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Keenan says McKennie has 77 percent success take on and has better interceptions and blocks than Onana, Rice, and Caicedo. Yeah, McKennie is a busy player. He, does a lot of the cleaning up in midfield. He's a really good midfielder in a midfield 3, like a traditional midfield 3. He does really well in that. So I'm not surprised to see that his interceptions or blocks are quite high. In terms of his take-ons, like he's a ball progressor. He's the type of player that is going to take the ball and like take the ball and progress it forward with dribbling. And we don't really have any players like that. And that's why I thought Declan Rice would be a really good option for Arsenal, is because he can progress the ball from deep. But again, I just have questions around McKennie's levels for Arsenal. If he came to Arsenal, of course I'd be like, cool, but I'm not sure. Tony says McKennie is probably all right, but not much more. That's kind of where I sit on it. Gunnar Bryan says, I think McKennie fits in that he could step up and it keeps Rice as an option in the summer. Yeah, I know some people are really high on McKennie. So, and the thing about it is that like I may not be able to see the vision, but maybe the club does. So the most recent thing that was said on Weston McKennie is that he's accepted Leeds' contract proposal. Personal terms are not an issue. It's on Leeds and Juventus now. The two clubs are discussing on conditions of the deal to understand how to proceed with a new round of talks. Like that basically just means like basically nothing. He's agreed personal terms with Leeds, but they need to discuss a fee. And so nothing is like done. And now we know, especially when you see what happened with Danjuma, very similar to what happened with Willian, is that even when players are doing their medicals and stuff like that, the deal is not quite done. Weston McKennie has rejected offers from Bournemouth, Villa, and Fulham. Now his choice is between Arsenal and Leeds. Juventus won't oppose the sale provided that they can get 25 million, including add-ons. So yeah, I'm not seeing a lot of Arsenal's name being mentioned. I'm seeing Arsenal's name being more mentioned when it comes from Italian outlets. The English-based outlets are not really talking about us as much. Arsenal could hijack Leeds United move for Weston McKennie. It is claimed Arsenal would be his preferred destination for the U.S. international if he were to leave Juventus this month. I would imagine that's true. He's already playing in Europe, Juventus, whatever you think about them, they're consistently in Champions League, falling into Europa League, whatever, but consistently in the Champions League. And so going to Leeds, who's in a relegation scrap, I do think would be somewhat of like okay, well, if Arsenal were to be interested, he'd be interested. But at the same time, I don't know, y'all. I don't know. McKennie's agent is in London for a few days to evaluate and negotiate with various clubs, including Arsenal and Leeds. The player is looking for the project that convinces him. So what we know is I do think McKennie starts for Leeds. It's a good fit because of Jesse Marsch, blah, blah, blah. But in terms of what's the right project for him, if he wants to win trophies, if he wants to be in Champions League, if he doesn't want to do the relegation scrap, I'm sure that Arsenal would feel like a better option for him. And then I've also kind of heard that Leeds are not 100% like happy with Jesse Marsch, and so there is kind of the idea that he could go as well. And so I would be a little bit, as a player, I'd be like, okay, I'm coming in under this manager, but the future is not set. So yeah, I could see why we'd be a better option in his mind, but is he the best option for us? I don't know. So um that's it for those two, and kind of like the cut price, kind of last ditch offers, kind of people that don't really fit but probably cost a little bit less, McKinney and Onana. Let's talk a little bit about Zubimendi. So we kind of talked about this a little bit yesterday, but there's been more reports today around Zubimendi wanting to come to Arsenal. It's crazy to hear that he'd prefer Arsenal to Barcelona. I don't think I've ever heard that in my life, especially not from a Spanish player. But um, um, so this came out today. I think Arsenal reached an agreement with Real Sociedad this month to pay the release clause, but the player does not want to leave his hometown club in the middle of the season, and the deal is more likely to happen at the end of the campaign. Zubimendi has already decided that he wants to move to the Premier League at the end of the season and has his heart set on Arsenal, not Barcelona, who want to replace Sergio Busquets. So I've never heard anything like that before. You could go play for Xavi at Barcelona, but you want to come to cold ass England. I guess you want to play for Mikel Arteta's tricky Reds. I mean, hey. But this is interesting. I do think that, like, if I was Arsenal, because of how desperate we are right now, I'd probably go back to him and say, what kind of wages do you want? And see if you could tack on a little bit more wages to get him to agree to come. Because if it's the difference between, like, if it's 25,000 pounds more, I don't know what he's on at Real Sociedad, but let's just say he's on 50,000 pounds a week. If you offer him 75, 80 pounds per 1,000 pounds per week, and that could be the difference between him leaving or not. I mean, Real Sociedad are having a great season and they're in third, but they are not winning La Liga, and you could potentially come to Arsenal and help us win the Premier League. So, I mean, my number one option would be to go back to him and say, what would it take to get you to leave now? Because every player has a price. Let's keep it real. Like, he may want to come. He may want to come at the end of the season, but I just try to tempt him with more wages. I like to hear that players want to come to Arsenal, and it may be expensive, but because I don't see Declan Rice as a natural number 6, it would be interesting to see Zubimendi in him come in, especially because I would imagine El Neni will be moved on in the summer, and maybe even Sambi Lakanga, and replacing those two with young midfielders that have bright futures that could, that sounds bad to Sambi, but you know what I mean, that really fit. That's what I'd spend my money on in the summer, straight up. But I don't know if Arsenal would go back in and try to convince him, but I'd do that before I'd bring in McKinney or Onana, straight up. And just ask him what it would cost, what it would cost to get you out of your contract, because we could be winning the Premier League, and Sociedad, I know it's your hometown, but they're not winning La Liga. Amir says, get Arsenal on the phone with Zubimendi, best salesman. I'll get Arteta on the phone with Zubimendi, best salesman. I know 5 minutes and he'll be packing his bags. Crispy Rice says, would be ideal, I think. I mean, to me, that sounds the most like, because Real Sociedad are open to letting him go if we can trigger the release clause. And so knowing that the money is fine, it's just about convincing him. And money talks. We know that. And so we're in a desperate situation with El Neni being injured for the rest of the season. And so if he's willing to come to Arsenal, why not come a couple months earlier and help us win the Premier League, Would he be cup tied though? I mean, that's one thing I would think about as well. Like, can he play in the Europa League? Because he's playing in the Europa League now with Sociedad. So I don't know how that works, but that might be something as well. So yeah, but I would still kind of be like, what would it cost to get you out of your contract? Boomer Gunner says, I think we need a DM this month. Is an overreaction given the options we have in house. So what are the options in-house then? I mean, a lot of the options that we speak about are in theory. Kiwior could play DM, but he's really a center back. Ben White can play CDM, but he's really a center back. Maybe we could play Zinchenko there. He's a number 10 playing as a left back. Sambi can play there, but he was literally moved from that position in preseason. Basically, the club said, that's not the position that we want you to play. And if Elneny is out for the season, there literally is no options in-house. So as much as it's not an overreaction, because even Arteta said that he wants to improve midfield because of the situation that we're in. So and the desperation that we showed in the summer to bring in Douglas Luiz after Elneny got injured, I do think like people think it's the fans that are overreacting. The club is actually showing you that they don't trust the options that they have in-house. This is the second time in one season where we've seen Arsenal kind of go out into the market and look for a midfielder when Elneny gets injured. So it's not us overreacting. The club is actually telling you that they don't trust the options that are in-house. And the options, Kiwior at DM, Ben White at DM, those aren't really options. I hear what you're trying to say, but the club is telling you that we don't have options, Crispy Rice says, that's just it, Jess. If we're going for both, any DM we buy now will be dead weight. Let's see. Mr. Banner says the only options are Sambi and the new CB. Arsenal have had 3 years to sort up back up for Partey and got it wrong every time. Well, I think that they had bigger, things that they were trying to sort out. I know Arsenal fans are like, that's the first thing that you should solve because, sort the backup, because if Partey gets injured, then that's it. But I do think that they prioritize getting the first 11 right. And now they're sorting out squad depth. And this would have happened in the summer, but it's happening sooner because Elneny was not supposed to be injured like this. I mean, it's just unfortunate. Elneny getting injured in training is so unfortunate. So I kind of get what you're saying. I don't think that they messed it up every single time. I think it wasn't as big of a priority as it is for the fans, but it's becoming more of a priority now because of where we are in the league, especially. Boomer Gooner says, how are the clubs showing that they're registering interest, but the player we want is Declan Rice, not available in the summer? So in the summer, when Elneny got injured, first of all, we don't know what position Declan Rice is going to be playing. So let's just start there, right? Not only did they try, okay, let's start in this window. Registering interest, they tried to trigger the release clause for Zubimendi just a week ago. So they tried to bring in a player. The only reason why he's not an Arsenal player right now is because he didn't want to leave in January. So let's just start there. That's not registering interest. That's actually genuinely going out there and looking for a DM. It's not an overreaction. The club is actually looking for a DM replacement. When Elneny got injured in June, or not June, I'm sorry, at the beginning of the season, so August, September, they went out and tried to go get Douglas Luiz. They didn't just sit there and put Sambi Lokonga in that position. Last day of the transfer window, they put in 3 bids for a player that was not for sale. So again, the club is showing that. You think that the fans are overreacting, but literally the club is going out there and putting in bids to bring in a DM. If that's not showing you that they need a DM, I don't know what is. We don't have options in-house. Like, we're the options in-house. Like, if you can name options in-house that you've actually seen in real life, then I'll give you $300. Like, because you can't name them. It's not happening. We're not overreacting. The club is showing it. IP says we need to convince Zubimendi before Chelsea goes there and turns his head. Hakum says, I don't doubt they wanted a DM, but I question the timing in the summer. Basically what it is if Elneny's injured, they don't see a option that they feel confident in. Like, it's literally just that simple. They don't trust Sambi, they don't. Like, it's clear. Saksham says, respect Zubi, but he should come now. I mean, let's Exactly. You're naming Zinchenko does a lot of DM duty. It would be seamless. So you're naming something that's never actually been used in practice. We've never seen Zinchenko play as a DM for the Ukraine. He doesn't play as a DM for Manchester City. He's never played as a DM for Arsenal Football Club. He's never played as a DM. He's literally not a DM. He's literally a number 10. And so you can't name an in-house option because there is none. So going back to your original point, we don't have in-house options and the club is showing you that they want to go out and buy a DM. So I appreciate your comment, but I have to say that I think you're wrong. Crispy Rice says, I meant if we're going for both Zubimendi and Rice, any other DM, yeah, dead weight. So I get what you guys are saying. At this point, there's only a week left in the window and it's looking a little bit like damn, but we'll see. Like we'll see what happens with that. There's almost 400 of you guys in here. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. Let's see. So Zubimendi, I think the best thing would be to ask him how much it would take to get him out of his contract. That would be the best thing, I think. If that doesn't happen, then the next option would probably be an Onana or McKinney, but those players for me just don't really fit the bill. And I could very well see Arsenal not bringing in anybody because we do know that they won't just buy any old body, so yeah, and then we'd be preying on Thomas Partey's hamstrings because yeah, that's yeah. That make me worried. People are talking about the agent of Ibrahima Bamba, defensive midfielder for Victoria Guimaraes, linked with Arsenal recently, is in London right now. I don't know anything about this player, you guys, so I'm not even gonna hold you. Not even gonna hold you. I don't know anything about this player. He's been linked with Arsenal before, has he? Like, Asian is in London. Oh yes, I remember us being linked with this guy. Yeah, I think he's a really young player though. Is he not 18 or something like that? Yeah, I don't know, but I would prefer us go for somebody that we've been linked with in the past, maybe even if they're a little bit younger, but they're actually a DM. I think the issue that happened with Sambi is that he was probably misprofiled from the beginning and he never really had that defensive quality. It was like we kind of assumed that he'd potentially get to it. He just never did. And so maybe bringing in somebody like this would be okay, but I don't know. I don't know about this one. His agent literally could just be in London because that's where he wants to be. A lot of people come to London or, because it's just a great place to be, so I wouldn't read too much into it. Let's not become stalkers, Let's see. Saksham says Arteta would talk some Spanish to Zubimendi and convince him. For me, that's the best option. Unless he's like absolutely not, but money talks, and he can't be on that much at Real Sociedad. Hakum says maybe the reason we never got Bruno is because Arteta could see what Xhaka was really capable of. Makes you think. Well, I think that's the reason why we didn't, because Bruno Guimaraes, like he's playing deeper for Newcastle, but he can. I think his best position is actually further forward, and more of an 8 role, and so I never really envisioned him as a number 6 either. So if he was going to replace Xhaka, maybe Arteta did see that Xhaka could do a really good job and we didn't really need Bruno. Now I still think that Bruno would be a good choice. Like I still think he would have helped our squad depth and would have been a really, really good player for us. But it just is what it is. Arteta told Xhaka to make sure he scored more goals and contribute more in the final third, and he did that. And so I won't begrudge the club, for not getting Bruno, in the past. Like I did before, but at this point I'm kind of like, it is what it is. Like he's at Newcastle and he's been there for a year now. Like why am I going to be tripping over it still? But the midfield reinforcements have to come sooner rather than later because we're really just relying upon Xhaka and Partey. And the two of them are so important. If we don't have them, I don't know what the club really looks like, or the first 11 really looks like without them. Let's see. Neil says, do people really think Mikel and Edu haven't already spoken to the players before we put in a bid for them? Social Join says Samba ain't got it. Scouting messed up. Sambi. Maybe Sambi has scouted for old formation 3-5-2 sometimes. I don't know. I really don't know what's going on with Sambi, but the fact that we're linked to so many DMs, it's just clear that Arsenal don't see him as a DM, but we have to keep him because if Elneny's out for the rest of the season, he's going to be the next man up to play that position should Thomas Partey not be available. And, I hope we get into that transfer market and find somebody. Sports Capital says Sociedad is going to go out by Barcelona tonight in the Copa, so hopefully his mind changes. Let's see. Azenwa says the best we can hope for is Camavinga on loan and buy a proper DM in the summer. I think the Camavinga thing is out the window. So yeah, I don't know. I would just try to convince Zubimendi. So the next thing I wanted to talk to you guys about is Fresneda, because now that Cedric has gone to Fulham, I think that does open up the door for Arsenal to bring in a right back. We know that Fresneda will need to be loaned back, so he won't come in this season, but Cedric wasn't even making the squad. So it's not like we're under any threat. Like if we loan out Cedric and we don't bring in somebody to be in the squad this season, Cedric's not even making the squad. So I don't think it'd be a big issue for him to be loaned out and then come in the summer. But we'll see what Arsenal are really about, in these next 24 hours or so, because what the reports have kind of said is that Dortmund are leading the race for him now, and they're really pushing. They'll let him go back on loan to Valladolid for the rest of the season. And, Arsenal are kind of, waiting around, not making the move. And, I don't know who to really believe because there's so many conflicting reports on this, but I would imagine that this gets done soon. Like he'll have to make a decision whether Arsenal have either made a bid or they haven't. Cedric leaving, I do think the deals are connected. I put it as simply as this. It doesn't have anything to do with squad numbers or anything like that. It's just the fact that Arsenal don't need 4 right backs on their books. Cedric was being paid 100 grand per week. If you didn't see that, he was on 100,000 pounds per week, which is catastrophic from Raul and whoever else was Hasfami, whoever wrote those contracts. That was just some sinister stuff, but 100,000 pounds per week. If you don't know what's going to happen with Cedric, so let's say we did bring in Fresneda, but we didn't have a destination for Cedric, and we just left it until the summer. If there's nobody that wants to bring in Cedric, a right back that's not getting any playing time at Arsenal, that's also on 100,000 pounds per week, you'll have 4 right backs on your books. And so I do think that Arsenal just want to know what's going on with Cedric so that they're not bringing in somebody else and they have 4 right backs that they're paying, that they have to pay. Now, Fulham are taking Cedric on a straight loan. They're paying his wages and it's only until the end of the season. So I'm not sure that that's the best possible scenario because ideally you probably want there to be some sort of option to buy or something like that so that, if Fulham really like him, which I'm sure that they will, they'll want to bring him on full time, or buy him in the summer. So I'm not sure if this really does open up the door for Arsenal to bring in, because what could happen, which we've seen so many times, is we send these players on these dry loans and then they end up back with us in preseason. And then we have to figure out what we're going to do with them. And some of them just end up staying. So I don't know what's going to happen with that. But either way, Fresneda's got to make a decision soon. And I don't know if he's waiting around for Arsenal or, you know what I mean? But I would like to see this deal get done. Because he looks really talented, and to replace Cedric with a really talented young right back that can offer some, real competition for Ben White, I think would be great, especially going into Champions League and stuff like that. Then you can move Tommy over to the left-hand side, which I do think that he's the second option. He's the backup to Zinchenko at the moment. And the next little bit of news that I do think lends into this conversation really nicely is that there is a growing expectation at Arsenal that Kieran Tierney can move on in the summer. And that's coming from James Benge. So that's not just like any old guy. This is somebody that is pretty well connected. And so we kind of already knew this. We kind of already knew that. I think the writing was on the wall. I freaking loved Kieran Tierney. He's one of my favorite Arsenal players, but my fear was always that the way that we're starting to play now doesn't really suit his strengths. And once Tomiyasu was preferred to him, I felt like the writing was on the wall. So you have potentially Zinchenko and Tomiyasu as left fullbacks, and then you could have Ben White and Fresneda on the right, and that leaves Tierney in the cold. And beyond the him like Tierney not being able to play Arsenal's way, he's good enough to play Champions League football. That's the reality. He's good enough to play Champions League football. And so I do think that hoarding talent just for the sake of it can sometimes work against you. And from Kieran Tierney's perspective, I would imagine that he'd want to go somewhere and start. But from an Arsenal perspective, if somebody comes in with a 30, 40 pound bid, I think you fucking take it. Kieran Tierney's on 100 and something thousand pounds per week. And if he's the third choice, kind of like Cedric, you don't pay your third choice 100,000 pounds per week. It's a waste of wages. And so I love Kieran Tierney, but I'm not saying that we have to actively shop him around. But what I am saying, if there's, if a bid were to come in, I think you have to look at it, and I would imagine that Kieran Tierney would want playing time. Like, he's not going to play at Arsenal. So a lot of people want to hoard talent because they're like, well, what if? But the chances of like all of our fullbacks going down at once is so unlikely. And right now, like, he's third choice, and if there's a market opportunity to sell your third choice, I think it's the right thing. So that has come out. But I see a lot of people saying keep Tierney, but I guess my question to you guys would be, why? Why? Why would you, like, beyond sentiment, like if you take sentiment out, the fact that, because I am sentimental about Kieran Tierney. If he does leave, I probably will cry. Like, he was my favorite player for so long because he was kind of like the first player of this new Arsenal. And for a while, he was like literally our best player. And so why? And when do you see him getting playing time? Because again, Tomiyasu is ahead of him in the pecking order at left back. That has been shown. Do you know what I mean? And so Zinchenko, Tommy, Ben White, possibly Fresneda. Then you have Kiwior, who you could also probably play at left back as well. That's backing up Gabriel. Tomiyasu can kind of play in those positions. Then at right side of center back, you have Saliba, Ben White, and Tommy that can all play there. I mean, you kind of have it covered. So, and for you guys that keep saying who's the backup to Zinchenko, the backup to Zinchenko is Tomiyasu. Like, that's the backup. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we've seen that. So, yeah. But yeah. But for you guys that are like, we should keep him for Champions League and stuff like that, I think the likelihood of us needing Tierney even in that competition is a little slim based on kind of like everything now. And so, like, again, if like 40 million pounds bid came in, I would say you take it, let's see, West Ham. Arsenal are considering a move for Moises Caicedo and could once again go head-to-head with Chelsea in their transfer market as race intensifies for the Brighton midfielder. West Ham United's Declan Rice is understood to be the top summer target, but Arsenal's interest in England international is not expected to prevent them from trying to recruit another midfielder this month. So it's two midfielders, which it always needed to be. It always needed to be a midfielder or two, always, because Elneny is going to be moved on sooner rather than later. I know some people hate that, but it's just true. He's going to be moved on, especially if he has these long-term injuries. If he's not even fit when we need him, then what are you going to do? And then Sambi is not necessarily somebody that's breaking through. So it was always going to be probably a number. It was always probably going to be two midfielders. I just always kind of thought it'd be one big purchase and then a smaller one. But we're in desperate times, call for desperate measures. Alex Shaw says Arsenal weigh up a move for Moises Caicedo. Bidding starts at 75 million, with Chelsea also interested. Man United could have signed him for a few million years back. That's coming from Sam J. Dean. This is such a difficult one because it's going to cost a lot. Brighton are hard to deal with. They don't really want to part with him in January, but then there's Bowley, who's just like a madman with mad money and is willing to spend it. And so I'm not sure that I believe that it'll happen, but that was the bomb right now. Like, that just came out right now. I can show it to you guys so you guys can see. As somebody says, a bomba. Let's see. I need a drink. If you guys don't know, I like a drink, and it's drink o'clock. Let's find it. I'll just do this one and translate it. Okay, according to Sam J. Dean, Arsenal is exploring a possible move for Moises Caicedo from Brighton this month. I'm not going to click on that. I don't care. Yeah. Yep. Arsenal exploring a possible move. And then, they're all kind of talking. And the main thing about this is that a move from Moises Caicedo would not stop us from bringing in Declan Rice, which also reinforces my feeling that Declan Rice is a number 8 for Arsenal and not a number 6. Zubimendi is a number 6. Caicedo is a number 6. Those are the two players that we're really looking at now, but Declan Rice is still the number 1 target in the summer. For me, Declan Rice is a number 8 at Arsenal, stepping into the Xhaka position. So yeah, but like Arsenal, then if they're gonna do it, they need to put the money on the table. Do we have the coin? Can we go in there? We know that we were willing to spend almost 100 million on Mahalo Mudryk, and so far we've spent about 50 million. Between Trossard and Kiwior. So maybe you give Brighton, a certain amount up front. I don't know, but we know Chelsea are lurking in the background, and whatever we can do, they can do better in terms of financially. And so I feel a little bit like I'm not going to get too excited about this just yet. But yeah, if you want him, go get him. Because I also know Chelsea are pretty preoccupied right now with Enzo Fernandez. And I'm like, just go after him so we can have Caicedo go away. Ify says Declan Rice is not a 6, but he played that role in the summer. Anyway, that's good though. Lucas says, in my opinion, both Caicedo and Rice can rotate as left 8s. Jess, we see Caicedo higher up the pitch for Brighton. He doesn't have goals, but good technically in his movement. That's a good play. A good point. Hakum says Caicedo can play both. Mark says, what's your drink of choice? A Negroni. No, if you guys have never seen that, then you don't know what I'm talking about. If you're on TikTok, you've seen it. My drink of choice. I love a glass of champagne. Okay. And then any sort of like dark liquors. So like I like bourbon, whiskey, like stuff like that. So yeah. It's my thing. Hakum says, imagine Partey playing in the Xhaka role. I don't. I used to want to see Partey playing in the Xhaka role, but not anymore. Now I like him exactly where he's at right now. Let's see. Crispy Rice says, I think Josh Kroenke's favorite toy right now. I think we're Josh Kroenke's favorite toy right now. But put the money down. I just want to see the player come in, man. Like, I don't need a saga. You guys know how I feel about the sagas. I'm done with it now. I can't be bothered to go into another transfer saga against Chelsea. Hello. Especially in this window. We know that Chelsea are willing to pay anything for a player, whereas we don't like overpaying. I agree. So yeah, like if you guys are just joining us, there's 400 of you guys in here. As you guys would like to say, there was a little bomba coming from Sam J. Dean that Arsenal way up a move for Moises Caicedo. Bidding starts. Hell, okay, bidding starts at 75 million. So like, but also like Everton, have some shame. Like 50 million for Onana, no, because 25 million more potentially gets you Moises Caicedo. Okay. But the bidding starts at 75 million pounds. And Chelsea are also interested, of course, so we'll see how that pans out. But both Arsenal and Chelsea have quite a good relationship with Brighton. So I can see us being interested and maybe talking to them, but if you don't have the money, don't even go into it, because the reality is they are very difficult to deal with, and they know that their players are going to get a lot of eyes, so yeah. But so we kind of talked about Fresneda. He'll make his decision hopefully soon. We'll see if Arsenal are actually really in it or not, but I would love to see Fresneda come in. Dylan, yes, I spoke about this yesterday, but this is a really good point as well, that Fresneda and Caicedo have the same agent now. Caicedo just changed his agents, and he has the same agent as Fresneda now. So that's, maybe that's why we wanted to stay informed of what's going on with Caicedo, and maybe Arsenal have a feeling that Chelsea are more interested in different other players, and so maybe there's an opportunity. I do think Caicedo wants to leave Brighton, but he's also not willing to push for a move. Aya says, watch us get neither Caicedo nor Rice, and we end up getting Zubimendi. I'll take him. Like, the thing is like, you don't always get your number one target, but as long as they fit, multiple players can be the right fit, if that makes sense. And so I'm not too like picky in terms of like those three, if that makes sense. Let's see. Ify says Zubimendi is it for me. Brighton will just waste our time on the deal. Breezy says keep Onana away from my club. Terrence Tibbs says, imagine if Wenger was still manager, we would be waiting another decade before we improve the squad. I think that's, I kind of get what you're saying there. We know what was going on kind of in those times, with Wenger and the ownership and stuff like that. It was a different time, and they were trying to do everything on a shoestring budget. So yeah, it is what it is. Shacklebolt says Brighton are the new Ajax. Brighton are the new Leicester. Yes, Ajax as well. Because like Ajax are known for selling their players for like top dollar, but like from a Premier League perspective, there was a time where like everybody was watching Leicester to see who the next player they were getting, and then they would go for 60, 70, 80 million or something like that. And they did that for Chilwell, N'Golo Kante. They did it with Maguire. They did it with Mahrez. I mean, I think COVID really messed them up, because if COVID had never happened, I do think that there would have been a market for Maddison and Tielemans, and one of those players would have been gone by now. Now they've kind of went stale, and so it's difficult. There's new players that people are interested in, but Leicester used to be that thing. Leicester used to be like, where do they find him at? Where we gonna get him at? Where we gonna get this person? And now nobody wants them anymore. Yeah. Amira says, regarding Tierney, an inverted right back could benefit him. Plays well with ESR and maybe Trossard. I see Tommy as our utility defender. And when I say utility, I don't mean the likes of AMN or Chambers. No offense to them. One thing I will say about Ainsley Maitland-Niles, we didn't talk about this, was Kiwior has gotten his number. So we know, like, it's subtle, but it's pretty like you're gone, giving the number 15 to Kiwior and giving the number 19 to Trossard, I think more than, solidifies the fact that like the two of them will not be coming back. Ainsley Maitland-Niles and Pepe. In regards to the inverted right back thing, I'm not desperate to see Tierney go. Like, if there's a situation where he can play the way that he plays best and we still operate the same, then it's fine. But I just find that it feels a little bit clunky when he's out there, because we know what Arteta is all about. It's plan A. And if you can't do plan A, do plan A better. And I don't necessarily see Tierney playing that overlapping role anymore. I just don't see it. I see him trying to invert and it feels a little bit forced. But, if there's a way for him to play his way, then fine. Like, I'm not kicking him out of the club. I'm just reading what I saw. And it is a feeling that I have underneath where I'm like, oh my God, maybe he would go if a bid actually came in for him. Let's see. Patrick says, Wenger, my man, he made money for Arsenal for 20 years straight. Please talk about him with much respect. King Winter Soldier TV says, Tierney leaving will be a bad thing for Arsenal. He's a baller. Yeah, I don't know. And then we have to see what happens with Nuno as well. Jasper says Brighton scouting, player development, and selling is on another level, and it should be studied more. Yeah. Keenan says with Trossard being more of an inside left, him and Tierney could cook. So yeah, not kicking him out, but just reading what I saw, and that's what I saw. Let me check and make sure there's nothing new out there in the universe. About Arsenal at the moment, looks like we're all caught up here in terms of transfer news. So the last thing that I wanted to talk to you guys about is obviously CHIESA. Arsenal have been linked to a move for CHIESA. Essentially, like, the headline was, CHIESA is now Arsenal's priority for the rest of the window. Now, we know damn sure that is not our priority. Our priority cannot be a right winger. Maybe we do have some interest, but I have a hard time seeing why a right winger would be more important than a midfielder. Now, people are like, well, why we need a right winger? We just bought Trossard, because Trossard is not a left winger, and quite similarly to midfield, where it's not just one midfielder that we need two eventually. We always needed two attackers. You need somebody that can back up Saka and somebody that could back up Martinelli. We solved one, but we haven't solved the other. The right wing market is so interesting because it's nowhere near as abundant as the left wing market, in my opinion. I think left wing, there's so many good options, but at right wing, it's so much more difficult. Chiesa is probably one of the best, like Kulusevski, Saka, Chiesa, like these guys, these young right wingers, they're very few and far between. There's not a lot of them out there. Now, Kulusevski is probably impossible to get, but Chiesa is interesting just because of the situation at Juventus. In the summer, if we were to go for him, I think it'd make a lot of sense. In January, because of, the situation with midfield, I find it a little bit difficult to see it getting done. There's been a lot of talk around Chiesa's injury record. I think he had like one ACL and that was pretty much it. But ACLs can really stunt you. We know that. We've seen many a player with an ACL, but he's a really good player. He's definitely somebody that, if you have Chiesa and Saka, you have Trossard, Martinelli, and you have Jesus and Kedia, I'm thinking you're set for a long time. He's 25 years old. So he's right in that good age range. When he played a full season was in 2020, 2021, and he scored 8 goals and had 8 assists. Now, Juventus are a really difficult team to score for, I think. I think they really struggle in terms of like creating chances and stuff like that. And Allegri ball is quite dire. So his stats in terms of like goals and assists over the last 2 seasons haven't been great, but they've also coincided with the injury. So a good player that doesn't necessarily have like so much GA to really back it up. But if you've ever watched him play, he's a sensational player. I would love to see him at Arsenal, but in January, it just feels a little bit like we need a midfielder, man. And I only see one more player coming in, to be honest, but um, I would love it. Like, I would love it, because Saka still needs backup, especially because we'll be in Champions League and Saka's not going to play every single game. He shouldn't play every single game. And we already kind of did the cut price thing with Trossard, so maybe you can go a little bit bigger at right wing. I don't really believe the little reports that it's going to be like 17 million or something for Chiesa, but maybe 40, 50, that would be amazing. Jasper says Chiesa would be crazy. Kevin says Onana and Sangare are not average players, starters in their respective national teams. I don't think that those players are average. I just think that there's better options that I'd like to see us explore first before we go to those. But I get what you're saying. Patrick says we definitely need a DM for the rest of the season. I think that should probably be the main focus. BroPro says Chiesa is being played as a right wing back by Allegri. That's awful. Let's see. Frey says, would you overspend this winter if it means we can't get Declan Rice in the summer? No. Shacklebolt says Chiesa is a must in the summer. Leao is not realistic, in my opinion, due to his money problems, debt. Well, the one thing I will say is, like, I think Leao plays on the left, and I think we've solved the left already. I don't think we need to bring in another left winger. I think we need somebody that plays off of the right, and Chiesa would be a good option for that. Can you get him out of Italy? That's just one thing that I'm like, Italian players, and I know you'll name me 5 that have left, but we know in general they don't tend to want to leave Italy. So could we get him out of there? Could we get him out of there without Boli coming out of there, coming and throwing 80 million at it? How do you get this player? Because I feel like if he is, if he's looking for a move, a lot of clubs would be looking at him. His right wings are so hard to find. He's right-footed, which isn't like really an Arteta thing. It depends on like what his left foot is like. Because we usually play inverted, but at the same time, like things don't always have to be perfect. You can put a right-footed player on the right side, and it won't crush your system. But good player, would love to see him come to Arsenal. Don't see it happening in the summer or happening in January, but maybe in the summer. But again, like a lot of clubs will be interested in him if he is for sale. BroPro says, I'm sure there will be the next big thing come in the summer. No need to think about a right wing now. Fuad Farah says, Jess, if you choose one player to play for Arsenal in midfield, who would it be? Bernardo or Rodri? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe Bernardo? I don't know. I don't want your players. Well, I want some of them, but not those ones. I don't want those ones. But like those are not the players that I want. Yeah. That's funny. Man City people think we just want all their players. We want some of them, not all. Hakum says Leao is overrated to me. I kind of feel the same way. Lindsay says Kay says English is very good. That would be cool. Let's see. Hakum says he's very good, but the hype is insane for him. Maybe that's Leao you're talking about. Shacklebolt says big difference in quality regarding international versus club football. Keenan says neither at this point. That's kind of how I felt as well. Like the players that we got from City are the players that make the most sense for us. Like at this point, there is a player from City that I would probably take that Rico Lewis. He looks like a really good player, but you guys need a right back, so you probably won't be wanting to let him go anytime soon. Wilson says, hello, Jess Wilson in the house. Happy you guys are here, or happy you're here. Let's see. Osmond says, Jess, if you could bring back 1 to 3 ex-players into the side, who would it be? That's such a hard question. Santi. I don't know, because I feel like they had their time, you know? Santi is the one I can really think about. Like, Santi's probably the one, because I feel like he would ball out in this midfield. Like, if you had Santi, Odegaard, and Thomas Partey in your midfield, you were dominating things. Do you know what I mean? So I would say maybe him. But the other players that, people are mentioning, like Vieira, Adams, Bergkamp, those players had their time. I don't really want, maybe, yeah, Alexis. Alexis is one. I'm thinking about players that didn't exist within the best Arsenal teams, but probably deserved more. So Alexis would be one. Carzola kind of is one. But Henri, Vieira, Bergkamp, those guys, they played in the best Arsenal teams. So they don't need to come back. I wouldn't really want them to come back because my reasoning for somebody coming back would be to be a part of a team that could potentially win because you didn't get a chance. And so I think Alexis, Carzola, those would be two I'd really like to see. But yeah, maybe those two, to be honest. Nabry, Rosicky, those guys, those are good shouts. Yeah, I loved Santi, you guys. Like, Santi was just he was that shit. Like, he was so good. Maybe Diaby as well. Like, Diaby was so underrated, but when you have so many injuries, it's just so difficult. So yeah, but you guys that are asking about a preview, do a preview tomorrow for the game on Friday. So we'll preview and we'll talk about all the things that you guys want to talk about, like in terms of how strong we should go, how, because there's a lot of questions around if we should go strong in the FA Cup, we should throw it, we need to focus on the league. I don't agree. I don't agree. Like, I think we should go pretty strong, because we're going to play Everton at the weekend. We should be able to beat them, especially in the circus. But yeah, we'll talk about all that tomorrow. But in terms of transfers, if you guys are just, kind of joining, you guys can, start from the beginning and, and go from there. But we went through McKinney, Onana, Zubimendi, Fresneda, as well as Chiesa. So we spoke about all that stuff now. There's only a little bit of time left in this transfer window, so Arsenal need to get going. It's from Ryan Taylor. He's saying, notoriously, Arsenal have been a club whose targets have been very public, particularly last summer when they missed out on Rafinha and Lissandro. Now they seem to be moving a little bit beneath the radar, except for the Mudryk thing. So there could be like something that comes out of nowhere, which is the only way I see something happening midfield wise, because going into a transfer battle with Chelsea now with a couple days left in the window for Caicedo seems a little bit like a suicide mission. But Arsenal have to bring in a midfielder now. If Elneny's out for the rest of the season, which if you guys are just joining us, there are reports out there that Elneny has sustained a long-term injury in training. And so that's why Arsenal are now in the they're in the market for a midfielder. So if that is the case, they have got to bring somebody in, because we know Thomas Partey, all it takes is like one little thing and boom, he's out for a significant amount of time. And I'm not sure that Sambi can do it in Nketiah. I don't think any of us feel confident about that. So we'll see what happens. But if you guys are new, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. We did make 15K, which is amazing. So road to 30K or 50K or whatever. Let's say 30K because it's closer. Starts right now. So make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. Make sure you guys like this video. Get in the comment section after. I'll reply to your comments as well. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your day. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye, guys.